2 beers an hour.
Boy, it's like you didn't even have anything to drink at all.
Yeah, I told you I was cutting down.
Oh, God, no. Oh, what do you think you're gonna do?
Welcome to Best Movies. Today we are introducing a 2016 American psychological drama film, Manchester by the Sea, written and directed by Kenneth Lonergan. Manchester by the Sea is an extremely quiet movie, but it's also a very powerful one. It's certainly a very deep and emotional gem that has an extremely good story as well as some magnificent and emotionally charged performances. The stars are Casey Affleck, Michelle Williams, Kyle Chandler, and Lucas Hedges. The story takes place in the present, while including flashbacks to relevant events. The protagonist is Lee Chandler, a janitor and handyman, who lives a solitary life in a basement apartment in Quincy, Massachusetts. The movie opens with scenes of him performing tasks for tenants of the apartment complex where he works. His interaction with them is minimal. After being reprimanded by his boss for swearing at an irritated tenant, he gets into a drunken bar fight with two businessmen believing they were staring at him. Lee receives word that his brother Joe has suffered a cardiac arrest, but he dies before Lee can get to the hospital. Lee insists on being the one to tell Joe's teenage son, Patrick, about his father's death. While making funeral arrangements, they learn that Joe's body cannot be buried until spring when the ground thaws. Lee opts to remain in Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts until the delayed burial. Lee Chandler is a depressed and asocial janitor who lives alone in a basement apartment in Quincy, Massachusetts. One day, he is told that his brother Joe, a fisherman who lives in Manchester by the Sea, has suffered cardiac arrest. Joe dies before Lee can get to the hospital. Lee insists on being the one to tell Joe's teenage son Patrick about his father's death. While making funeral arrangements, they are reminded Joe's body cannot be buried until spring as the ground is frozen. Lee makes plans to remain in Manchester, living in Joe's house until the delayed burial. When Lee meets with Joe's attorney, he is shocked to discover Joe named him as Patrick's legal guardian. Flashbacks reveal that Lee once lived in Manchester with his then-wife Randy and their 3 small children. While intoxicated one night, Lee forgot to put the guard in front of the fireplace, leading to the house fire that killed his children. No criminal charges were filed against him, as the police considered it a tragic accident. However, at the station, a guilt-ridden Lee stole an officer's gun, attempting to shoot himself. He and his wife divorced, and Lee left town. Lee is reluctant to commit to the guardianship, as it would require him to move back to Manchester. Plans are begun for Patrick to move to Boston with Lee, but Patrick has strong ties to the Manchester community and stubbornly objects. Lee commits to staying until the end of the school year. Patrick wants to live with his estranged mother Elise, who still lives in the area. Lee is opposed to this as her history with alcoholism led her to abandon her family, but Patrick decides to reconnect with her over lunch. Elise has committed to Christianity and sobriety with her fiancé Jeffrey, but during an awkward meal with them, Patrick finds he is unable to connect with her. He is further unsettled when Jeffrey emails him and insists on being an intermediary in any future communication between them. Lee's positive comments about Elise's sobriety lead Patrick to believe his uncle is trying to get rid of him, assertions Lee denies. In response to this strain in their relationship, Lee takes steps to possibly extend his stay in Manchester and seeks to spend more time with Patrick. Over time, they re-establish their bond, despite conflicts over Joe's boat, Patrick's girlfriends, and their future living arrangements. However, staying in Manchester is still painful for Lee, as he is surrounded by reminders of his past. One day, Lee runs into his former wife Randy and her newborn child Dylan. A sobbing Randy expresses remorse for her treatment of him during their divorce and asks him to have lunch. Lee deflects her apology, feeling that he does not deserve it. When she insists they reconnect and pleads with him not to just die, Lee is overwhelmed with emotion and has to leave before he breaks down. Distraught, Lee gets drunk at a bar, picks a fight with strangers, and is knocked out. He awakens in the living room of Joe's friend George and breaks down in tears. At home, Patrick shows his uncle deference after seeing his battered state and pictures of his deceased children. Lee arranges for George and his wife to adopt Patrick so that he can remain in Manchester while Lee takes a job in Boston. When Patrick asks Lee why he cannot remain in Manchester, Lee says that he can't beat it. During a walk after Joe's burial service, Lee tells Patrick he is searching for a residence in Boston with an extra room so Patrick can visit whenever he wants. In the final scene, Lee and Patrick go fishing on Joe's refurbished boat, which Patrick has inherited.